recording now? Yeah, let's do it. Welcome. So today, what we're going to do is I'm going to try to make a data collection game for my stats class where they click a button as many times as they can in 10 seconds. And then after 10 seconds, it stops. So we need two things for that. Maybe more, but we'll start with this. So we're going to start with a graph component and a button component as well. So the first thing, we have to name these. I'll call this graph 1. And I'll call this one, let's say button 1. Okay. So I need to make, what we'll do first is we'll make the rectangle of how high it goes. I'm going to make a folder. There we go. And we'll call this the bar height. Okay, so we want it to be a polygon with a few coordinates. And let's see, I want it to be a rectangle, so it's going to have 4 coordinates. Let's have it go from 0, 0 to 5, 0, and then it'll go to 5, 5, and then it will go to 0, 5. Looks like, oh, that's a point right there, not a, there we go. Cool. So these are the points, 0, 0 to 5, 0 to 5, 5 to 0, 5. Fantastic. Awesome. But one thing I want this to be able to do is move up and down. So like this point right here, right, the y coordinates at this point, I'm going to make a new variable. I'm going to call that variable h for height. So I'll call it h. And now it's a little slider here.
Power off.
But I want it to go up and down at the same amount on the y, so these last two are going to look like this. We don't want it to go negative, and we'll go steps of 1. So now when I click and drag this, it looks like that. Awesome. So I have to remember that the height of this is h. Cool. So now what I need to do is I need to connect these two components together. So I need that h to be able to talk to button 1. So I'm going to go into the CL, the computation layer, for this, and I'm going to name the number in this graph. So number, it's called h. I want it to be tied to that button. So I think that's called button 1. And I want it to be the press count. So if you notice, there's a press count option right here. So there's press count. So now that h will be how many times you press that button. So let's see if it works. There we go. Good stuff. Now, it doesn't look super nice. Let's freshen this up maybe just a little bit. One thing I want to do is I want the bar to always be visible. So that means that I need to change the window of the graph. That's going to take a few extra little steps here. So I'm going to make I'm going to go into the graph and make another folder. And we'll call this window. The only thing that I really want to change is the height of the window, because I want as the bar goes up, I want the window to go up as well. So I'm going to make a variable, let's call it y max. Sure. Okay, equal 1 right now. So right now it's not really doing anything, but I can connect it to this. So the y max will have, I want the top of the graph to be connected to the top of this bar, but I want to show a little bit of space, so I'm going to make this like 10% more, 1.1 times h. So like when h is 3, the height will be 3.3, so on and so forth. Now what I need to do is in the computation layer of this, there's some more functions that we can use. So for example, for simplicity's sake, let's make the y max I'm gonna do a few computations in this screen. So I'm gonna name a variable y max, and that's going to be in this graph. I'm going to get the number, and it was called y max, not h. It was called y max. Okay, so that just means that I can do some computations in this screen. So there is I'm not sure if it's called sink or source. I think this is called a sink. It's called bounds. I want to make the bounds. Make bounds is an option that's going to set our windows. So our rectangle goes from 0 to 5. So maybe I'll have this go from -1 to 6. So one pass, that's the x minimum and x maximum. Then the y, I want it to be maybe at -1 to y max. So watch what happens here. I have a squeaky chair, I apologize. So now, it looks kind of wonky right now, but watch this. So that make bounds is now adjusting the window here. Notice it's going from -1 to 6, and now that it's tied to the button clicking. Good stuff. But now, I didn't like how it looked like in the beginning. Like, that seems kind of awkward. I want to be able to see just like the bounds. So what we can do is we can put like a conditional in here. So when, let's see, when button 1 press count is greater than 0, I want it to make that move, like that move adjustment. If it's not 0, so otherwise, let's make the bounds not that. Let's just have the bounds be 0.1. Doesn't know that. 0.1 doesn't know that. Okay, let's try that. I'm curious. I had to do some thinking in my head there. Ugh, I don't like that. Ooh, I have an idea. So right when we click it, it goes to 1, right? So maybe right when we click it, it jumps up to 1. Ugh, I don't like that. I want that to be down here, right? So maybe when it's not clicked, I'm going to go back to the CL here. When it's not clicked, oh man, what do I do? 6? Let's see what that looks like. Go back to preview. Ugh, see that jump? I don't like that jump. Maybe, maybe instead, like right when we start clicking it, instead of press count's greater than 0, maybe when the press count is greater than 6, that's when it starts moving. Otherwise, it'll be at the 6. So let's see what that looks like. That looks better, right? That looks a little slicker. And it kind of has that like nice little adjustment there. Good stuff. Notice that it's always 10% more because we defined the y max to be 1.1 times h, and h is the number of times it clicks. So it's always going to be, there's always that 10% amount there. So one thing I haven't done, the goal here is to make a game where the students try to click as much as they can in 10 seconds, but right now I haven't allowed them to, the button still just kind of goes forever. So I'm going to go into the button CL here, and I want to, so when this button is clicked, the button's clicked one time, I want to start a timer. But the tough part is that they're going to repeat clicking this button. So every time they click, it's going to restart the timer. That's an issue. So I'm going to make a second button that's kind of like a decoy. Let's call this button 0. And let's say this button is going to say click here. So button 0. So right now, if I go, oh no, not past AP exam, no. Okay, so button 0 has nothing in the CL, so right now it does nothing. This is button 0, this is button 1. I'm going to make it kind of look like 2 buttons. So button 0 is going to control like the time of the other button and how much it can work. Because as we click the other one, as we click one of the buttons, the timer is going to keep repeating. So after the first click, I want this button hidden. So this is going to say hidden when this time sense press is greater than 0. So once you click this button, the time sense you've pressed it will be greater than 0. It'll go away. So if I click, this is button 0, this is button 1. If I click button 0 right now, time sense press is greater than 0. It'll be hidden. It's gone. So now the cool part is that just because it's hidden doesn't mean it's not doing stuff. So if I go to button 1, I want to disabled when button 0 time sense press is greater than 10. So that means that this button 1, won't be able to be clicked. So watch this. Ooh, but I don't want them to both show. Oh yeah, this should also be hidden. So button 1 should be hidden when button 0, when its time sense press is 0. So when button 0 hasn't been pressed, you shouldn't see button 1. See? Now, it looks like the same button, but really that's button 0. Once I click it, it goes away. And that's button 1 now. And button 1 has a timer attached to it. So that first button that says click here, that's button 0. Then it's the timer on that is still going so that it's not repeating every time I click this one. And eventually after 10 seconds, this one will stop. Doing pretty good. Made it past 100. What the heck is going on? Button 1 should be disabled. Oh. I'm not sure why. I mean, I could put the word true. Is that the reason? No, it doesn't want that. Maybe I need to put a time in. So the time sense press at 11, when it's going to run for 11 seconds. When it's more than 10, it's going to be disabled. Let's try. Wonder if that worked. So after 10 seconds, it should be disabled. Nice. Okay, cool. Boom. So it stops. And then now the tough part is I need to make sure that I make a little label up here. So we'll close these. We'll make a new folder really quick. We're going to put a label up at the top. Not a table. Oops. Table, not a label. So this will be called label. I'm going to call it P. And it's going to be halfway in between. So between half of 0 and 5 is 2.5, 2.5, comma, we'll have the height be h, so it always is moving. Remember, the bar height is h. Let's have it'll be black. I don't want to see that point, though. Now, here's something that's kind of cool. I want the label to be the value of h. So to get that value in the computer, or like in the Desmos graph, we do this $sign with the brackets, h, and to format it nicely, we put these little, I don't know, I'm not sure what those are called. But now, it's that number there. So, I think right now in the graph, it's, I can move this around. So it's always that number. And then let's modify this a little bit so it'll hover slightly above. Maybe the font be 2. And that's kind of big. That looks okay. That's not too bad. Ooh, 70. Nice. All right. So there you go. This is an easy way to collect some data. There's other stuff we can do with this. We can compile all the scores by using the aggregate function, but we're not going to do that this time. So stay tuned for that. There you go. Easy way to collect some data, have a little bit of fun with this challenge. Take care. Mr. French just did some Desmos.